avoid having to go into another situation where we have to enter into remote learning. It's not about control. This is completely about keeping the students here in these buildings where they can get the best education possible. And I don't believe the best education possible is going to be had at home. How about the memes and the pepes of the moms and dads? My kids have been through it. We've heard the horror stories. The teachers did the best they could. But the whole reason we're asking you to wear a mask is so that we can just stay safe, keep our kids here in remote learning. With that being said, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the 903rd meeting of the directors of MSAD number 27. Roll call, please.
Keith Jandro.
Here.
Isabel Lozier.
Here.
Abby Pooler.
Here.
Toby Jandro.
Here.
Leroy McKenzie.
Here.
Gary Sibley.
Here.
Sarah Ashley.
Here.
And I apologize, your student reps could not be here tonight, and they're getting ready for the big production that's happening at the end of the week, so they begged that they would not attend so they could prepare for their presentation.
Adjustments to the agenda.
You have one adjustment. So your pink agenda is not the one we're going to use. You should have a white agenda that was put on your desk. And it has an adjustment under new business, items for information, new hires. We're going to add a number 4, special ed tech one-on-one at FKES.
Very good.
I'd like to, if possible, move to, where is it? Number 8, old business. Number 2, planning board discussion. I'd like to move that to the end, after evaluation.
The evaluation is not happening tonight. The evaluation agenda item is for feedback on how to prepare. December is the
No,
publishment.
but after that.
Oh, sure.
After that, just so we know how much time we have to work with, because I don't want to be rushed through planning.
Do we have a second? Toby's motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Unanimous? Very good. Period of public participation on items of this agenda. We have Mr. Joey Guerrette. This is in regards to old business number 8.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so I was here at the last meeting. I just wanted to kind of revisit what we had talked about at the last meeting. After we had talked, I went home and I thought about everything, and it really just didn't sit very well with me. As I believe it didn't sit well with a lot of the parents here tonight. One of the issues that, or I'll just kind of rehash some of the issues that you guys had talked about. One is that you as a board revisited optional masks after the state kind of had an uptick in cases. And then after a few people came to the board and expressed the concern, the board decided to go mandatory masks for the kids. And then when I asked the board kind of why they decided to do that, they said, I wanted to avoid remote learning. So there was a word in there, and Keith, I respect your opinion that you want to avoid, but I think every parent here understands that that's a risk. And they're the ones who make the decision. Well, they're the ones that should be influencing the board in order for you to represent them in the best way you can. You're representing the people. So then then the board said, well, it was because we had a full ER. And
Can I correct you for a second?
yeah, go ahead.
I think it was more along the lines of the ICU bed occupancy. I don't think it was necessarily just the ER capacity.
Okay.
It might have been a combination of both.
Sure. And then when I had asked at that meeting if it was according to the ICU, nobody here knew what that was. Nobody could tell me what that number was. The only person that said anything regarding capacity was Ben, who said that at that time there was a doctor who said there was a full ER. which again, I just want to remind the board that a full ER doesn't really equate to anything. Our ER has been full before COVID even started. ERs across the nation are full, so I don't really know what that means. So then the board said, well, okay, we're in the red, therefore we want to go remote learning. And then there was some kind of ambiguity, or go ahead.
We never said we were going to remote learning.
Oh, excuse me, we're going mandatory masks, I'm sorry. And then there was some kind of ambiguous type of approach where you said, and I'm not saying it was a bad approach, I'm just saying it was somewhat, kind of flexible in the sense that you said, if we look back at our local area and there is reduced cases, the board would come back and look at that, would revisit that to see what we could do locally.
And that was also upon the advice of our medical consultant, as well as the condition within Aroostook County.
Yeah, absolutely, and like I said, I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just saying I'm just kind of hashing a little bit of this. So anyway, so I'm here tonight to kind of revisit that, to kind of see where you're at with that. So as far as I'm concerned, right now in our valley, as far as I can tell, and the board can correct me if I'm wrong as far as student cases of COVID, or if you know what the student cases are, what our ICU capacity is with COVID, and what our ER capacity is. But regardless of that, I think there's and again, I'm not going to speak for everybody here, but I do know there's a large percentage of parents here that are pretty upset with what's going on. So what I would like to do is ask the chair to entertain a motion to just go back optional masks, if that's an option for the board to entertain. Just because I think we're at a place right now where our students are literally the only people left that are masked. And as a parent, I think it's getting a little bit ridiculous.
So can I ask you a question? When you go to the hospital, you have to wear a mask? Okay. Are there institutions around town where they ask you to mask and you don't?
Not many, except
This
the
is not a
hospital.
medical facility.
The court, I have to wear it to court every time.
That's good, but anyway, we're talking about the school. So the school is.
No, Joey, because you just said we're not, this is the only place.
I
You
think
don't
on
get
the
to have
floor
it both
I think on
ways.
the floor, if you want to pick a fight, I guess.
Well, no, but Joey.
Yeah, let me finish with Joey first.
Yeah, sorry.
Joey's gonna talk about a few more things, right?
Sure. Yep, so that's it. I think, I just would like to know where we're at, number one. And if the board thinks we're at your level of comfort to go optional. And if so, I would like a motion to be made on this agenda item to go optional.
I think you bring up some valid points.
Yeah.
Obviously, the conditions have changed quite a bit since the first
Absolutely,
one is
absolutely.
masking.
Yeah.
I have not heard back. Ben, have you heard back from our medical consultant yet?
The directive this board gave me, back when we went to mandatory masking, was as long as we were in a red distinction in Aroostook County, we were to continue to have mandatory masking. If we fall below red, we would discuss and have conversations. In fact, I believe that's at the yellow level, not even an orange level. So I do have conversations with Dr. Hart. I did not reach out to her prior to this meeting because we are almost at 300 cases, which is one of the higher levels we've been in Aroostook County. So based on the data that we view every day, it didn't warrant for me to pose that question.
So on August 26th, the board set some criteria as to when and where and how we would remove masks. And one of them is if we were going to come out of the red, actually out of the yellow, right? Into yellow. That was one of the criteria, along with the advice of our medical consultant. We're not quite there yet, so I'm afraid I would not entertain that motion this evening, Joe.
Well, I think any board member can make a motion.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can not entertain it if you want, but a board member can make that motion. And I just want to remind the board is that you did leave a level of flexibility on the board members, right? So again, so if Aroostook County's in the red, what are the numbers here in the St. John Valley? And if you don't know that, you are holding our children hostage without knowing any of that information. And that's really bad. As far as I'm concerned, that's really, really bad. If you can sit here as a school board member and not know how many people here in the St. John Valley are infected with COVID, but you're gonna force our kids to wear a mask and not know that answer, and I'm just gonna hold everybody here to what they said, that you guys were gonna have some flexibility and make the decision based on the local area, which that's what we're doing tonight, is we're looking at what the local numbers are, and if you don't know that, I don't know how you can look a child in the face with a mask and say we're protecting all of these kids when you don't even know the numbers. So until you can give me specific numbers here in the St. John Valley, I think it's ridiculous that you're gonna hold kids hostage to masking. That's all I get to say.
Very good.
I think to add a little something, a little food for thought, is that the state of Florida has 0 mandates of any sort, any kind. They leave the choices up to the public. If you want to wear a mask, you wear a mask. If you want to get vaccinated, you get vaccinated. The state of Florida right now has the lowest COVID death rate in the United States, and they leave the choice to the people. So all this color designation and everything, we don't need to put so much emphasis on that. This has been taken to a level that's unacceptable. You look at our economy, you look at everything that's going on in the world right now. We need to use common sense.
Next person that signed up was, I believe, Jake Michaud. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Michaud?
Yes. My name's Jake Michaud. I'm from Fort Kent. I have a child in high school here. First thing I have to say, I have to applaud all of you for taking the time that you've taken, and applaud you for making the decisions that you've made over the course of these past 2 years, being inundated with something that nobody ever wants to experience. But that being said, you have made a major misstep. A major misstep in your decision process.
Mr. Michaud, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yes.
Normally, when the public addresses us, they're over here.
I wish to face all of you, so I'm going to circle all of you.
With all due respect, the board members can turn and face you.
All right, that's
Thank you.
fine.
Thank you very much.
That being said, you have made a serious misstep in violating the constitutional rights of the people of this entire town. Not just the people who disagree with what you have to say or what's being done to our children, but to yourselves. All the decisions that this board makes now sets precedent for anything else that we may face in the future. And some of those decisions may go against what you want for your kids. Things that you know are wrong. A decision that you have made that we know is wrong, because not one of you can prove that masks inhibit viral transmission. I don't see one kid here in a full hazmat suit and a full face piece respirator, all taped up, attached to oxygen. Because that is the only way we're going to defend our children from a known virus. I find this ridiculous. We want to have faith in our school board. And that decision that was made in August removed that. We want to trust you with the lives of our children while they are in your care. And we no longer do. That is appalling in a town like this. It's scary what type of decisions you guys can make in the future. Especially with the proper counsel here. I mean, you know, I don't mean to single you out, but you know the repercussions of this. This is an unconstitutional move. It is illegal. And it is perfectly arguable in court.
Mr. Mitchell, I think your time's up. I do respect your time. And
You're gonna do this?
we have other unions, we have other
The
business to
doctors
go
had
on.
over an hour to talk.
That's fine.
And I'm-
This is our
And this is-
district.
this is-
These are our children. This is our tax money, and I have a right to speak. I got up at 2 o'clock this morning, worked 16 hours, and still stayed up to speak my mind. Because I knew the right people were gonna be here to support it. You're not cutting me off.
The board represents
Well,
us.
You represent me.
I'm not really thinking, Mr. Mitchell.
I want you to make a motion to answer a question here today. Does this board have the right to dictate to parents and students against their will what they are going to do to their body?
Yes,
I want
we do
this-
it all the time.
You do it all the time?
Yes. Our kids are not allowed to drink on campus. Our kids are not allowed to vape on campus. Our kids are required to be immunized when they're enrolled in school by state law.
These are school policies.
We don't let girls wear spaghetti straps.
And we understand that. We have no problems allowing our children,
I'm done.
or telling our children to raise their hands or to stand in line. The decision that you have made has actually put many of our healthy children more of it at risk of a simple bacterial lung infection. Do you have any defense of that? The subject is not COVID. It doesn't matter what leads you to violate somebody's constitutional rights. The subject is that you have allowed something to violate our constitutional rights, and it must be removed. You
Mr.
have
Mitchell,
an opportunity
I
to
need to
do
interrupt you
so.
for a minute. I'm not here, the board is not here to argue constitutional law. We are here to conduct board business. And I would kindly ask you to please wrap up what it is you need to say. I want to hear what you have to say. I'm not here to disrespect you.
Well, that's fine, and I apologize for getting so heated, but this has been a long time coming. The board has the opportunity to do the right thing and to make the right decision and make it optional for the children. Or we have, if you do not, then there are other avenues that parents can take to ensure that you make the right decision, or you are removed and replaced with somebody who will.
Yep.
And it is by our timeline, not your timeline. You make up your own timeline. If we don't want you here, we can vote you out immediately. Things can go our way because you are here to serve us and to do the right thing by our children. And if you do not, then I have a right to get a little upset and to feel my heart coming out of my chest. You know what I mean? It sucks. I can't stand the fact that I have to stand here and say this to you people. We love all of you for what you've done, but you've just made one minor misstep that has escalated into an issue that nobody wants. Imagine coming to a meeting at the end of your long days and not having to deal with this. Can you imagine how nice that would be? Just get on with new business and move on, everybody's happy. Nobody wants to go remote. It doesn't matter whether we're masked or not. We're going remote this fall because shit's gonna hit the fan. But we have a right, our kids have a right to come back to school and make their own decision about masks. Parents have a right to send their kids to school with or without a mask. We're not arguing any policy that this school has put in place because overall you do a fantastic job at keeping our kids safe. But you have to reverse this now. There are lawsuits popping up all over the country against full board members or individual board members who have made the wrong decision. And those lawsuits are actually being allowed to be argued in court. We don't want that for this community. This community does not need that. We could take a stand. All we have in the face of a federal government who's telling us what to do, in the face of a state government who's telling us what to do, all we have is each other. And if we cannot protect our kids together the right way, without violating each other's rights, then we have nobody. You have to understand the seriousness of this. You want to disregard it, and nobody, nobody here thinks you're being malicious in your actions. You're obviously believing you're doing the right thing. And that is honorable. But how many of these meetings do you need before you make the right decision? Somebody's gonna get fed up enough and sue you guys. Who the hell needs that? Nobody. We don't want to face it. We don't want the news coming in here and bringing this up to the rest of the world. This is something you have and you can fix tonight. All other news aside, the entire school is going to keep running. I would like somebody to make a motion to answer this question. Does the school board have the right to force a child to do something to their body that they do not want
So,
and that the parents don't want?
first things first, until we get out of public participation, we can't make a motion. We need to get on, move along in the meeting, and if somebody wants to make a motion, we can have a motion in a second and enter in discussion amongst the board members. But until we get to that point,
That's fine. I've
you
never been
understand?
there. Yes, I completely understand.
Thank you very
And I
much.
apologize for
No, I understand for your.
kind of sounding like an
I understand.
asshole here tonight.
No, not at
But
all.
I'm
I
very
understand.
nervous. I've never spoken public, and
Dude,
this
I-
is coming from here.
I'm used to it, it gets better. I'm just, sorry, I'm joking about myself.
Yes, I understand. Yes.
On my shoulders.
But this is just wrong. We don't want to deal with it anymore. There are little kids crying every morning because they have to mask up and go to work and asking their parents what they've done wrong. Why do I have to do this? This is physical and a lot worse, mental abuse. We have no idea what the mental implications of this are going to be to these tiny little monsters. We have no idea what's going to happen. We can make it better for their future if we remove that.
We've gone way beyond our time limit.
I understand.
We need-
I understand. You've given me some extra time.
We have business to conduct.
That's fine. Conduct your business, but I do expect a decision made here tonight as to whether you guys have a right to force a child to do something that the parents do not want that child to do. It has to be worded properly, so there's no skirting through it. No, I didn't understand the vote. It has to be done properly.
Very good.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 4, approval of minutes of the regular meeting 9:02 on October 5, 2021. Do we have a motion?
Yes. Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Very good. All in favor? Let's see. I believe we moved item 8.1, is that correct, Ben?
We're at the approval of financial statements.
Okay. Approval of financial statements for the month of August 2021. We have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous? Approval of the September 21 financial statement. All in favor? Second?
Sorry. Move.
Oh, sorry about that. And myself.
Motion?
Motion, second?
Second.
Any discussion? Very good. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. All right. Number 8, items of old business. Under old business, number 1, MSAD 27, school reintegration plan. That's a reoccurring agenda item.
I think we'll be at number 6, so we'll go to superintendent at this point. Number 8, we're,
It was just 8-2.
8-2, we're gonna go to the
8-2
end.
was moving, not all of 8.
Oh, we only moved the second part?
Yeah.
Very good. All right, superintendent's notes.
I just have a few updates. In your packet, you have a letter from the United States Department of Education Office for Civil Rights. It's dated October 13. This is in respect to research that has been done with respect to what's going on with respect to the pandemic and overall student health and wellness. And specifically in this report, the Department of Civil Rights is highlighting, and this comes from their June 21 report, something called Education in a Pandemic, the Desperate Impacts of COVID-19 on America's Students. Disproportionately, many of the students with disabilities, their families and schools in the area have been impacted. It was something important that I felt needed to go out to the staff. So this was shared out to staff. In your notes, you do have some links to that report. I just recommend you go through it and take a look at what the study has found. I'm on a mailing list with the Department of OCR. If I get anything more that I feel is really board worthy, I will share it with you. But I thought this one specific to students with disabilities and the impact that the pandemic has had on them, be it remote learning, be it masking, be it whatever, it's all very interesting in the study. I just wanted you to have that for your information. The second item I have under updates, back in June, I believe, Maine passed what was called LD 993, an act to retroactively grant sick leave days to public school employees affected by COVID-19. Essentially what this did is because the COVID relief days that were covered under one of the federal packages had expired, the state of Maine felt it was wise to retroactively put those back in place and cover school employees, specifically those employees that have to quarantine because of they actually have COVID-19. Their children do, or their family members, or they're required to quarantine because of close contact. What the legislature did not realize when they put this LD 993 in place was because of the retroactive language and the intent of the law, it actually had an expiration date that was set to expire on October 18, 2021, which was 90 days after the law had taken effect. This caught a lot of people across the state by surprise because it was the intent of the law to cover school employees at least throughout the school year and maybe longer. So as a district, we decided to do the right thing. We consulted with our unions and speaking with them, and we decided that we would do what the law was intended to do and cover our employees for this school year. We did reduce it a little bit from 15 to 10 days because we felt 10 days was 2 school weeks, and we felt that since a quarantine period is 10 days, that would fit our needs specifically. A lot of good feedback from staff members upon receiving this. We haven't had to give out a whole lot of COVID days to staff here and there, but staff members know that they have the 10 days that they can count on in the event that, heaven forbid, they do get COVID, they have those days. So I did want you to know that we did do that for our employees as well. Any questions on that? Okay. Next thing I have under superintendent is curriculum information. I will ask the board your permission to table this item for tonight. It's because it will be rather lengthy. I'll need technology, which I'm sorry I didn't have time to set up, and I feel that in order for you to have the right kind of presentation, I think it should come at another time.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved by Gary, seconded by Sarah. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Opposed? Unanimous?
Last month, I did share with you the preliminary October 1 enrollments. In front of you, you have the actual October 1 enrollments. You will see the breakdown we have by grade level, pre-K 49, kindergarten 56, grade 1, 59, grade 2, 57, 63 for grade 3, 57 grade 4, 59, grade 5, 40, grade 6. And then that moves over to VRMS, 64 grade 7, 80 for grade 8, which is our largest class, grade 9 at 56, grade 10, 59, grade 11, 62, and grade 12, 64. You'll see that below the school total enrollment, so Fort Kent Elementary, 441, that's 6 less than last year. VRMS CHS at 385, that's 8 less than last year. So your total, 826, is 14 less than last year. I did make a note in your notes that our graduating class last year, that's usually the biggest, impact that we have on enrollment. Your graduating class last year had 58. This year, your enrollment in pre-K is 49. So you already have the net loss of 9 from graduating to coming in. I did also indicate at the bottom your homeschool students. This is up 11 from last year. So 52 homeschoolers throughout the district. Superintendent's agreements are the same as last year, incoming and outgoing. So net loss of 14 from last year, from October 1, 2020 to 2021. Just for your reference, I also indicated how many teachers per grade level, so you get a sense at what the spread on that is and what it means for the class sizes. This year, your class sizes are largest in grade 3. It's a larger class, and we have the 3 teachers, so that's why you see the larger split there. Any questions on that?
They told me to make a motion to move that number 8 up on the agenda.
Did you move it to move up or move down?
Down.
And it
I
was
mean,
just
we have a
the
lot of
board-
parents here, could somebody on the
It-
board make a
It
motion
was,
to?
Joey, it was just the board planning discussion.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Does somebody wanna?
There's just one little piece, because it's gonna take a while, and we don't wanna
Okay,
keep
my
you all here
understanding
longer.
is that you asked, does anybody wanna make a motion to move it up on the list? Because we have a lot of parents here that wanna know what the.
This is all good stuff, Joey.
I know, I'm just.
I've got harvest.
saying
I've got harvest surveys coming
I
up.
know.
Hold on, folks.
I know.
And
The
Peter's
item that
Peter's
you
gonna
all-
read a PowerPoint soon.
The item that you are all here for is item A1, which is the reintegration plan, and we're not far from it. And you'll learn a lot about harvest. Every year, we do survey our middle and high school students on the potato harvest, just so you know. And we preface that we're not looking to eliminate harvest, but the numbers do help us make decisions. Great turnout, so thank you, Mr. Doucette and Mr. Coletta. We only had 10 students not respond throughout the grade level, so 371 responses. You see the split on grade levels. You see the split on gender. The golden question is, how many students were on a farm harvesting this year? And we had 44 of our 371 respondents, which is about 12% of our students actually working on a farm. You see which farms they worked on, and how many days they actually worked. The majority of our students worked between the 2 weeks that we give for harvest break, or they actually took an extension and took that 3rd week. So you can see how many of those 44 students did request an extension, more than half of them, and then which jobs they performed. Then I also asked the final question, what other jobs, if any, did you work? And you see the spread on that as well, most of them working at local retail shops or healthcare facilities, whatnot. Just food for thought in case you have questions as we prepare for next school year with regards to harvest break. You have that data in front of you. The last item I have is the MSAD 27 webpage revision. Hopefully you had a chance to check out that, that link that I put in your notes to our School Blocks account. It's not a live link yet, so that's why it still says School Blocks in it. When we make it live, it will be the same address it is now, sad27.org. This website, way more streamlined, a lot less links. On the forefront, it's mobile device friendly, so when you're looking at it on your phone, it looks the same as when you, or it looks mobile friendly as compared to when it's on a computer or a tablet. It does have some wonderful tools, so when you go to staff links, you click on your teacher's name, you get right to their Google Classroom pages right from there. So no more scrambling to find those Google Classroom links. Teacher, and then you'll be able to select those. Really intuitive, works really seamless with Google Drive, Google Docs, Google anything, which is why we chose it. And our IT technician, Debbie, had that task of changing everything over to School Blocks, and she's done a wonderful job. And we're hopeful that you are all in support of it, because tomorrow we'd like to make that go live. So go check that out tomorrow, brand new website, sad27.org. Any questions on that? The last thing is administrator reports. You had a report from Mr. Doucette, Mr. Anderson, Ms. AnnMarie, and Ms. Stacey Sear. They are here if you have any questions. I know there were some questions about a soft lockdown that we had 2 weeks ago now, and Mr. Doucette did report on that in his report, and Mr. Doucette is here with Mr. Coletta if you have any more questions about what that all was and why we did that.
I think the chief complaint about that is how late the notifications went out. And I think we need to know that next time, hopefully there'll never be another next time, but if there is a next time, I think the parents need, and the community needs notification sooner.
Yeah.
I don't know what that involves as far as the administration is concerned, if you have to have a point person that handles communication
Yeah.
between yourselves and the public.
Yeah, we were in the thick of it in the morning, and so for me, it was a quick text to central office ladies about, please put a post on our social media page, just so we had something out there, just because we didn't know what we were dealing with. And you're right, by the time we got more information and it was more fluid, we did put out our Swift Reach, and it was later in the day at that time. So we did debrief on that and how we can improve. In fact, it's making us rethink a lot of our safety protocols. So we will be putting a safety team meeting together quite soon and talk about all those things, but communication is one of those. And that'll fall directly under my responsibility.
Well, I think it would be nice for the board to hear a follow-up to that discussion.
Yeah, once the safety committee meets. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yep, we're meeting this month, so.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I thought we were getting away from soft lockdowns.
We are with respect to like threats for active shooter and that type of thing. But this effort of soft lockdown is just to make sure nobody comes in the building.
Okay.
It's that kind of soft lockdown.
I guess the other question is, how is that communicated to the younger children, especially in the elementary school, where it's definitely of a more sensitive nature.
Yep.
I think that's something I'd like to, maybe not necessarily hear about right now, but at the next meeting when we get a follow-up discussion.
Of how we address that with those students, yeah.
Right, is it transparent to the students? Obviously not, because they can't go outside on their mask break, right?
Right.
So, I think as a parent and as a community member, as a board member, we need to look at that and be sensitive to it.
Sure.
Okay. Committee reports?
The only committee reports we have is our second read of policy BED, which is remote participation in school board meetings, and then your second read of JKAA and JKAAR, which was the restraint and seclusion policies that you reviewed last meeting.
These will be up next month for approval?
These are up now for second read and for approval, these three.
I move to approve second read and adopt the revisions of policies BED, JKAA, JKAI-R.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? None opposed?
You do have a first read policy, and this is policy BEDD, which is agenda preparation and dissemination. And this just came up through a conversation that the chairman and I had about how we disseminate board agendas. There was some reference to mailings, and we don't do that anymore. Everything is electronic mail, and so on and so forth. And we also added social media language because we do post on social media sites. This is a first read, and if you have any questions, we can definitely discuss them during second read next meeting.
Are we making recommendations now? Is that?
No, just
Just
taking a look at it.
Yep, no action necessary. Okay, number 8, items of business, old business. I believe it was number 1. We're going with.
So number 1 is our school reintegration plan, why everybody in the room is here. I'll just start the conversation off by saying the data that we have right now, and through Sunday, October 31st, which was yesterday, your Aroostook County cases are at 295.28. Again, that red level starts at 100. We're at 295.28, so we're almost 3 times higher than that red level. Once we dip below 100 to 75, that's the orange level. Below 75 is the yellow level, which is where we want to be for sure, or ultimately in the blue level. We're on a slight uptick in the past week, so we've had 20% change in the last 7 days on the positive side, going up. Not a huge spike like we've seen the past few months, but just a little increase. We're hopeful based on what Mr. Sibley shared earlier in the meeting about what's happening in the southern states that have run its course through the Delta variant, that soon we too will be seeing those declining numbers and hopefully get back to a little more normal. The only other thing I'd like to say before I open it up to the chairman, we did receive a priority notice from the Department of Education on Friday, and I put a copy for you to see. It has highlights like this on it. A lot of folks throughout the state asking about who governs the decisions for recommendations, especially the SOP, which is the document we follow for mandated requirements for quarantine. This press release by the DOE was very specific. You'll see that first highlighted paragraph. Public health policies such as quarantine length are determined by local health authorities and are based by the latest available science from the CDC. According to the US CDC, your local public health authorities make the final decisions on how long quarantine should last based on local conditions in Maine. In Maine, the local public health authority is the Maine CDC. So if you're wondering who determines that and why do we have to follow it, it's a CDC thing in Maine that Maine just has to follow. It's not specific to COVID-19. It's specific to any communicable diseases that are out there in public health safety. That second paragraph says only the Maine CDC may establish the policy. Example, quarantine isolation lengths for matters that are internal to a school setting. In the school system itself may set the guidance. Schools must adhere to the Maine US CDC's uniform statewide quarantine policy. So I know that's a hot question. Why do we have to follow it? Who determines that? And this was some clarification on the US CDC sets those things, and they're the authority to do so.
Ben, what are the repercussions if we don't follow?
That I do not know.
Can we find out?
I can definitely ask that question. I do believe there is a school district right now that is not in the state of Maine. So I will find out.
You should partner up with.
Does somebody care to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion.
What would that be?
I'd like to make a motion that we move from mandatory masking to optional masking in our SAD 27 district.
Second.
Go to second. Seconded by Gary. Any discussion? Leroy?
Yeah, I'd actually, I'm gonna beat the dead horse, but, some people agree with the, surveys that were sent out. Some people don't. Some people take them to heart, some people don't. But I think just as when some members of the board voted when, the medical staff came here and made a showing, we have a whole lot of concerned parents here, and I think that they need to be heard. And I believe that, there was some good feedback from Jake and Joey, and I feel that it's our obligation as voted, elected seats here to listen to what our parents are saying.
Gary, you have something to add to that?
I'd like to hear from everyone else on their thoughts since we last met. Toby, Abby, Sarah, Izzy. You? Do you feel
Well-
any differently than you did before?
I feel like we're close here. I really feel like we're close. I'll reiterate what I said earlier about remote learning. That's the last place I want this school district to have to be or go back to. Gary, I have a question for you. At our September board meeting, yourself and Mr. McKenzie showed up wearing a mask. What changed between September and October?
I didn't wear a mask in September.
Really?
He didn't shave.
Oh, that's what it was.
I haven't worn a mask.
I stand corrected.
And since you bring that up, Keith, you can't help but notice that after we had the second meeting where we reversed our decision to have optional masking, that every one of you, I think with the exception of Toby, was seen by different members of the public, in public, whether it was at restaurants, the grocery stores, or in public with your children with no masks on. That makes it awfully hard for everyone in this room.
Well, the fact-
Let me finish, please.
Go ahead.
That makes it awfully hard for everyone in this room to swallow the decision for mandatory masking in here when you're going out in public with your kids with no mask. What is the magic of the 6.5 hours we're in this building? Why is that so dangerous? The Pat's Pizza or Prescal isn't, or the grocery store isn't. I don't know. Explain that to me.
Well, give me a minute. Fact of the matter is, when staff, students, and administration are in this building, we're responsible for their safety. We have how many layers of protection? We've got masking, we've got screening for symptoms, for temperatures, we've got hand sanitizing, we've got custodians cleaning rooms, we've got multiple layers here in these buildings to ensure that we're not facilitating the spread of this virus.
Parents should be
And
responsible.
then,
What happens outside of this building is none of my business. None of my business whatsoever. But when you're.
but when you
but
put
when-
yourself in a position that you're being a hypocrite, Keith,
Yes.
that is the problem. Because if you feel that strongly that they need to be masked in this building, then they should be masked at Pat's Pizza or in Prescott.
You either believe it or you don't.
What is the difference? Either it's everywhere or it's nowhere. It's not exclusive to our school buildings.
That's right. Amen.
We don't have a statewide mask mandate right now.
Ben, can I ask you a question?
Oh.
If we had no masking in this school, how does that affect the flow chart that you have to go by whenever, excuse me, public participation is over, you've all had your chance, now it's our chance. What is the trigger for remote learning?
So, your question is twofold. The first question is what if we're not universally masked? And so whenever we're determining if there's a positive case in a classroom or a soccer, if there's a positive case, we have to go through the close contact steps. Number one says, are the close contacts fully vaccinated? If they're fully vaccinated, they're fine. Question 2 says, have they recovered from COVID-19 infection within 90 days? If they have, they're all set. Question 3 says, are they in pool testing? If the answer is yes, they're all set for in school, not outside of school, but in school they're all set. But after that, if we're not universally masked, anybody who is not vaccinated, not in pool testing, and not recovered would have to be quarantined in any scenario. Because we have masks on, that is reduced to a 3-foot radius for students and or physical touch. If you are within 3 feet or you physically touch, you have to quarantine. If not, because you're wearing a mask, you don't have to quarantine.
So is it fair to say if we had gone optional, state optional, we would have had a lot more extended absences by staff members?
Oh, now we're predicting.
And based on the amount of positive cases that we
So
saw already.
I'm not a medical professional and I don't claim to be one, but I do know that in speaking with our nurses as they were doing close contact investigations, they were able to exclude some individuals because of the masking. To what extent, I do not know. But generally, yes, because we are universally masked, we reduced our required quarantine. Now, that being said, we've really reduced that number since people have signed up for pool testing and have increased vaccination rates, so that's wonderful. And we're hopeful that if and when we go universally masked, that's going to carry us. But I will say, and I have nurses texting me right now, we have had more positive cases so far this school year for students than all of last year combined, and that's concerning to them on that side.
So what
I'm just the messenger, folks. I'm just the messenger. Doing my best to be politically correct here.
So let me ask you this. I think last year we had a designation of outbreak status.
Correct.
How does that?
So depending on what level of infection you have throughout the school, the US CDC uses a formula based on how many people not in the same family have positive cases throughout your school, and they set a number, and forgive me, I'm flustered right now, so I don't know what that number is, but then they can designate you as an outbreak status school. If you are designated as an outbreak status school, a lot of what I just explained to you changes, like they may require a full classroom to quarantine because of 3 or 4 positive students in the classroom. So now the 3-foot distancing doesn't work and that type of thing. And once you are also an outbreak status school, the US CDC may say to you, you should go into remote learning for a period of whatever to clear up what's going on in your building. So we did that, I think twice last year at the recommendation of the US CDC. Knock on wood, we haven't got to an outbreak status yet this year because our positive cases were not
Concentrated.
we're not concentrated to a certain level.
Very good. Sarah, you have anything to add?
I have another question for Ben. Give him a second.
Sorry.
No?
Go ahead.
It's coming up on the agenda, but we've got to look at the winter sports stuff. This assumed all the this was put together by all the Aroostook County superintendents, ADs, building administrators,
Correct.
and this was assuming universal masking countywide.
And that's because 90-something% of your schools throughout the state are universally masked right now. So I was actually on a subsequent meeting with regional superintendents throughout the state. So I'm the Aroostook County representative, And I can show you the majority of the state is moving towards a similar recommendation that what we have in place. Our goal is to have athletes playing sports, have parents watching them, not online, but in person. And the only way that we can do that, according to the CDC guidance that we have today, is to have universal masking.
So, no universal masking, potentially no sports? Don't know.
The problem that becomes, so everything is under local control right now. You can make a decision here for this district that impacts this district. When it comes to athletics, your local control now goes beyond SAD 27, because you're sending your kids to Caribou, to Calais, to whatever. So now your local control becomes somebody else's local control for your children. So with that being said, everyone is mindful of that, and so the only way to do something like that safely and in a way that's not going to make everyone upset, because you have a different standard in every town, is to have a universal idea of what we're going to do. There are teams in Aroostook, 1 or 2, that are currently optionally masked, and they have agreed to universal masking in order to have games, because they understand that we may not send a team there if they're not universally masked, because we are. Is that helpful?
Yes.
Toby?
This just sucks, okay, for everyone. As Gary pointed out, I wear it everywhere. And I wear it everywhere because I'm going to make a 4-year-old wear it, I'm going to wear it. Okay? I'd like to point out, our board has voted that. I don't always like what the board does. I disagree with this board on many occasions. But I honor and respect the decision of the board, because that's what we live in. We live in a democracy where sometimes you don't win. Sometimes you lose. It doesn't mean you get carte blanche to defy the law, defy the rules. You don't get to decide which ones you pick and choose to follow. We've decided, when with a representative democracy, that sometimes you're going to get things that you don't like, Eric. And Leroy. It happens. But we follow the rules. If we don't follow the rules, then we don't even have a system of government anymore. It disappears.
What about the Constitution?
It's already
Listen, the Constitution can be argued all day, but the fact is we have a representative government. We voted. I listened to what the doctors said. I'm not an expert.
Toby has the floor.
Who's talking? Who's talking?
Toby, this isn't the time.
What's your name?
Tanya.
Okay, Tanya. Where do you live? Where's your address?
I don't have.
I'd like to interrupt your dinner.
Huh?
Nothing. So this is the thing. I think we listened to the doctor's talk, and we made an informed decision based on what medical professionals told us. Am I happy? No. Do I like wearing this? No. Do I like to see my kids wearing this? No. But right now we have to consider what we need to do to keep the school open. I don't want to go to remote. I really don't. It's detrimental to everyone, and we saw the results of that last year. I saw it in the courtrooms full of child protective cases, the most we've ever seen. It's just overflowing. So, given that, I mean, if, Jake, you talked about bacterial infections, I mean, bring in a doctor. Bring in a doctor, please. If it's a constitutional argument, cite something.
You're a lawyer. And you voted to violate people's constitutional rights. Is that just something you do here, or do you do it in a courtroom as well?
Well,
Because I guarantee you wouldn't be practicing very long.
Toby, do you have anything else to add?
well, yeah, I just like to say, if you want to make an argument, make an argument. Come in and bring in your people. Convince me. with somebody who knows what they're doing, an expert.
Well, the fact,
Convince us that you know what you're doing. Convince us that these masks are inhibiting viral
I'm
transmission.
offering a suggestion. Come in with somebody about the about the bacterial transmission,
Burden of
cite
proof
something.
is not on us.
Toby,
No.
Sheriff, Karen.
Can I ask you a question
Let me finish.
when you're done?
Then I'd love to hear from them.
later on, I'm gonna go around back.
So I guess with that said, I don't like it, but I'm going to stick with my decision. I've heard no new medical evidence to sway me, and that's where I am. And we're still in red. Our vote was, as long as we're in red, it's mandatory masking. That was the vote that carried. We go to yellow or orange, and we have the option to revisit. That was the vote we made, and that's the one I'm going to follow.
So that's not
All right,
quite
Ms. Polar, you have something to add?
In the first meeting where we discussed this, I did vote for optional masking, and I did change my mind because of the rise in cases and trying to avoid remote learning. I think Joey, you were right, I didn't truthfully, I guess, do my due diligence because I didn't think that we were going to be voting on this tonight. For me to be comfortable switching to optional masking, I would want to know how many cases we do have locally. I work at the pharmacy. I will say we do testing all the time, but the amount of tests have gone down and the amount of positives have gone down. So I think for me to make a vote based on what I originally voted for, I would need to know the amount of cases.
Good, thank you.
Ms. Lotier?
I'd have to agree with Abby on that one, just because I feel since we first voted, I feel like the cases have gone down. I did notice the hospital had something about, like, not necessarily a,
Like a dashboard?
Yeah, like, kind of like a dashboard. I don't know if it was the local numbers, as in like St. John Valley, or if it was the county numbers. I should have checked. But I would like to see the local numbers before I make an actual decision, just because if the numbers are lower than what we're being told off of the county numbers, then I think we should just be fair and represent our communities.
So what the two of you are saying is you don't have enough information right now?
No.
Yeah.
You don't feel like you have enough information to make a good decision? Leroy, you had something else to add?
Yeah, and Toby, I want to ask you a question. I don't, and I'm not trying to be whatever, but you're talking about how, talking to Gary and myself about democracy, how the board voted a specific way. But I think what a lot of people seem to be forgetting is that the public voted too, and the board defied what the public wanted. So you're talking about democracy, where is the democracy there?
It's,
If you recall, Toby, the last meeting, you said that you were going to listen to the people that were here.
yeah.
This will be the second time that you haven't listened to the people that are here, because you already told them you're not going to change your vote tonight. And also in our very first meeting, when we voted to go optional, you and Sarah both voted no.
Yeah.
Even though everyone that was in attendance, there were more people in attendance that night than there are tonight.
Yeah.
You still voted no.
Okay.
Can I interject something?
Yeah.
I voted no because our school nurse, our district physician, and our building administrators are advising for mandatory masking. We look to our building administrators all the time to guide us. We ask them questions. We follow up on things. We ask for more information. But they educate our children. They kind of know the best way to do that.
Parents do too.
But we also
Parents do
work.
too, but you send them to school here. So I guess I put a lot of weight on what our school nurses are advising, what our building administrators are advising, what our district physician is advising.
But we also work for everyone that's sitting out there.
I
Those are the
understand that.
ones that ultimately vote for our school budget.
I'm not saying that it's an easy thing. I'm just saying, for me, that's what weighs heavily. I mean,
And we talked about, oh, sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say, we talked about,
No, you don't, you've already started twice, go ahead, I'll finish it after.
we talk about cases and numbers and all that, but, and I've talked about it before, I don't care about cases and numbers. I wanna know about severity of illness, because we no longer have any colds, we don't have stomach flu, we don't have seasonal flu, everything is COVID. So of all the staff members, of all the students that have had COVID, have we had any severe cases? Or has it all been cold and flu-like symptoms that we normally have this time of the year?
We don't, I'd have no knowledge of follow-ups of the severity of,
I mean, it seems like if we had severe cases, we would have heard about it.
we have no deaths. That's what I know.
Do you think that maybe we benefit from having something from our medical advisor at every meeting to give us an update? I think that would help me, because it would put a lot of this stuff to rest, because if everything's fine here, I mean, just accepting that that's the case, let's pretend that Dr. Hart comes in and said that you're really doing okay here, that would sway me. If a medical professional told me I'm in the trenches and things are better, that would sway me. Because what swayed me in the first place was their advice that things were not okay. All I'm saying, and I wasn't trying to be facetious when I was asking you, Jake, I was really like, give me something. Just give me data. You know, and if the doctor comes in and talks to us, I'll listen. And you have questions for her too, Gary. I think that's where Abby is, and that's where Izzy is.
Well, I think the one thing we have to be careful on with that is that, I mean, we all received all the emails from all the medical people, but you've also got to realize that they're all towing the company line. This is the message. You need to contact your school board members. This is the message. And I know matter-of-factly that there are several medical professionals that sent us emails or talked that night that do not agree with mandatory masking. But to maintain their employment and toe the company line, this is the message that was sent.
It creates a problem for us, doesn't it, Gary?
It does. I did it for 27 years. I had to toe the company line. Whether I thought a law was important or a directive was important, I couldn't publicly speak against it, even though I disagreed with it 100%.
I think Ben has something to add.
So, just so you all know, this is a nightmare for the administrators in this room and the nurses this is a nightmare, because I'm listening to all of you speak logically about things and listening to parents, they speak logically about things, but we have this SOP that I would reinitial to something else that we have to follow, and I don't know what the repercussions are if we don't. And just let me shed some light on that. If one of us in this room is positive tomorrow, you test positive, we're all in quarantine. Every single one of us is going to be told to go in quarantine. Now, you can do your business because you're the public, but I will have to go quarantine because I have to toe the company line. All right, I have my employment. So I'm just that's the realities that we live in as school administrators, teachers, nurses. Right, wrong, or whatever, it's all ugly and garbage, but we have these rules that are given to us that we have to follow. Whatever you decide, board members, universal masking, optional masking, it's just going to change the way that we respond based on that SOP. So, you asked it a while ago. Is it going to increase the number of required quarantines? Yes. It will, because we have no choice. Anybody in a room that's not universally masked will have to go into quarantine at school. So I'm not saying that because I want to, I want to argue with anyone. That's just the realities that we live in right now. It's very, very difficult. So,
Mr. Sirwa, how does pool testing play a part in that?
So,
if we weren't universally masked and we had pool testing, how would that?
The theory behind pool testing is that you belong to a pool of people, and schools are generally predictable. You have period 1 with generally the same people, period 2 with generally the same people, so on and so on throughout the day. So they put you in a pool of people who generally have a regular class with you. At the elementary school, it's your homeroom. Here, it's who you generally move from class to class with. And the theory behind that is because these are your pool of people, an exposure to one of you has risk to potentially expose all of you. So you test weekly to keep your pool safe. Now, the minute you leave that pool and expose yourself to a different pool, like rec soccer, oh my God, rec soccer, right? That's a different pool. I know it's the same kids, and I'm not arguing it because I tried to argue with Dr. Shaw, but it didn't make any sense. But it's a different pool because it's no longer predictable because you don't know where those kids have been or whatever. So the only way that pool testing works to keep you out of quarantine is if it happens in school and your close contact is in school. The minute your close contact is outside of school, church, Mame's birthday celebration, whatever, then you will have to quarantine outside of school. And I'm not here to defend that, I'm just here to say that's what it is.
But even pool testing, it allows you to come to school. But if you're
Right.
designated as a close contact, it only allows you to come to school and prevents you from having to quarantine
Right.
during school hours. But technically, you should be quarantining outside of school hours.
But if we have optional masking and one person in the class tests positive, does that whole class then have to remote learn
Not if you're in
quarantine?
pool testing and not if you're not.
There we go.
I'm agreeing with you. Not if you're in pool testing. And not if you're
During the
vaccinated.
school day.
Okay, thank
Not
you.
if you're vaccinated.
And still come to school.
Problem solved.
Can I finish now?
Just so you have an idea, 40% of our 7th to 12th graders are not vaccinated to date. So just,
How-
guys, this isn't Facebook Live there. Really there? Holy moly. I don't have the up-to-date number on pool testing, but I will try to get that to you before the night's over.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Does anybody else on the board have anything to add?
I'd like to finish, if I could.
Very good. So Leroy's original motion
No,
was.
no,
No,
no.
he
I'd
wants
like
to
to
finish
finish
talking.
talking.
Pardon?
I'd like to finish talking.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Well, you had proposed something a while ago. You had asked Gary and myself specifically why we didn't wear masks. And I wanted to let you know why I'm not wearing a mask. One, because I don't support fear. Two, I understand the reality of COVID-19, but I refer back to one, I don't support fear. And I support everyone that's sitting out there that has asked me to stand up for them, because they were the majority. And now they're not. So that's why I wear not a mask.
Well, the last thing I'll have to add is basically that we have tough decisions to make tonight. And the tough decision isn't always the popular decision.
Keith, before we get there, I see Minik just walked in. I'd asked about the severity of illnesses.
Do you want to know total since the start of school?
I want to know the severity of any illness, not numbers.
Hospitalizations, Gary? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, something more than just cold and flu symptoms that we have
I
every year.
don't have the hospitalization numbers or the severity there. I have our information here from our students and our staff. And I have pool testing numbers, and I can explain pool testing if there's still questions.
Do you know of any hospitalizations among staff or students?
Some that have spent a night in the ERES for observation.
But overall, it's pretty mild.
Well, I guess mild is all relative.
But it doesn't sound like anybody's prepared to provide you guys with hard data as far as what you're looking for.
Because there is no hard
details.
data, Keith.
And there's
No
also.
matter which way you look,
Well,
it
there's
says
also
something
healthcare
different.
privacy involved, right, too? I don't know that the nurse is privy to everybody's health history.
Well, we know everyone's vaccination history. And she's the one that makes the calls on the quarantining, so I would think that she would have some idea of the severity of illnesses.
Move to end discussion.
You're not gonna get hard numbers on anything. No matter where you look,
Very
you're gonna
good.
find something different.
Move to end discussion. Go
All
to
right,
vote.
all those in favor of optional masking? Show of hands. Very good. 2 in favor. All those opposed? 2 in favor, 3 opposed. 2 abstain. Motion fails. Very good. Next order of business, option 2. MSAD 27 board planning discussion.
I think that one got.
That got bumped to the end.
Okay, very good.
It's easy.
Option 3, American Rescue Plan, Esser Fund proposed project.
So last meeting, we talked about the, our application for the American Rescue Plan Esser Fund. At that time, I did let you all know that in lieu of having $100,000 remaining, I pitched an idea of a vaccination incentive, and then that turned into conversations about possibly a staff hazard pay of some kind. And then we ultimately put that, we tabled that, I guess, to figure out more information about what else we could use the funds for. I did share with you in your notes that we had an oversight in the application. We forgot to put the half-time pool testing coordinator in that for this year. And after that calculation, because that individual just started a few weeks ago, $16,285 will need to be allocated in the Esser ARP for that project, for the pool testing coordinator. The other half of that position is funded by local entitlement because the individual is working with some special needs students, so it's funded under special ed. So that has a balance of $83,715. If we were to still consider how to use that $83,715, we could, and I think I heard the board loud and clear talk about not really comfortable with a vaccination incentive thing, because that kind of is a political thing that, and I totally understand. But what if we were to divide those funds into a hazard pay, which we all know every staff member has endured some kind of level of craziness throughout this whole ordeal. And based on what we have left, we could do a $400 to $450 hazard pay for our full-time employees, and then somewhere about half for our part-time employees. So I'm just looking for the board's thoughts on that, so I can go back in and possibly update the projects.
I would fully support that.
I would too.
Very good. First of all, Gary, would you care to make a motion?
I would make a motion to enact a hazard pay with the remaining ESSER funds.
I would second.
Any discussion?
I don't think we should. I don't think we should live in fear. You know, our constitutional rights are being trampled upon.
Toby, save it.
All right, I'll withdraw my objection against my constitutional rights.
My only question is, these funds that we have for a pool testing coordinator, how long do we expect to have a pool testing coordinator? This could be a while.
It could.
It's a one-year position at this time, Keith, but we're aware we may have to extend that.
That's my only concern. I had brought up the hazard pay option to Ben, and we thought it was a good idea, but, you know, here I am throwing a wrench into this.
Can we split the difference? I mean, we're probably gonna need a pool testing coordinator next year too, right?
Hopefully not.
Well, if we don't, then we can have the money to,
It's hard to say.
can we split how we designate it? To basically say that it's in reserve for a second-year pool testing coordinator, and if not, then we can distribute it as hazard pay?
Yeah, I have to go put it in year one of the pool testing coordinators. I can put year 1 and 2, just doubling the money. So essentially, well, it'll be a little more than that, so let's say 40 grand.
You know what? The motion's already on the floor. I'm not looking to change the motion. I'm just looking for food for thought. So, if that position has to get extended, we'll probably have to look elsewhere for funds.
If you're asking me, we could use 2 more nurses and 2 more or 3 more social workers, but I know that's not gonna happen, but that's what our needs are these days.
At the same time, we do need to show our appreciation for everybody showing up, that stayed employed and didn't have to leave, or didn't decide to leave, just kind of stuck it out. So, anybody else have anything to add?
I'm
Gary's
good with as
motion?
it stands.
Very good. All those in favor? None opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, now. That is the new business?
Yep, we do have a resignation, no retirements, we do have a resignation, special ed educational technician at Fort Kent Elementary, and you'll see an attached email, or in your packet, you'll see an email. I'm writing this letter to inform you that I'm putting my resignation as, for my position as ed tech at Fort Kent Elementary School. I've taken a new position at ACAP here in Fort Kent. If anytime you're in need of a substitute, I have availability and will help out. This is signed by Chelsea Dion, so I need a motion to accept Chelsea's resignation.
So move.
Second.
Toby moved, Gary second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? None opposed?
We do have a transfer I just wanted to make you aware of, because Susan Pelletier did announce her retirement coming in December, I believe. Angela Adams was given glowing results by her coworkers, both Susan and Jenny Perro, and Melanie has asked that we accept the transfer, so we have accepted the transfer of Angela Adams to the head cook position as soon as Susan retires. Just letting you know that. For new hires, you should have a letter from Jill Kelly in your packet, and they are, she and Mr. Anderson have interviewed, and they are recommending Selena McBriarty for one of our special ed educational technician one-on-one positions at Fort Kent Elementary School.
So moved.
Gary, second?
Second.
Sarah? Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. Toby?
We have some kitchen personnel that are being recommended. In your packet, you should have a letter from Melanie Legassi. She is recommending Jessica Riley as a Fort Kent Elementary School cook helper, and that replaces Angela Adams, who I just notified you will be transferring to the head cook. Tiffany Daigle for CHS cook helper, and she replaced Diane Weaver, who resigned last month. And then Samantha Boucher, who will be bouncing between schools, Samantha Boucher, and she's replacing Melanie Boucher, who has been a sub and is now working in Madawaska. So the recommendation is for all 3.
Do we have a motion? Isabel?
Second.
Ms. Fuller seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? None opposed?
You do have some letters from Josh Nichols recommending some coaching positions, and I apologize, I left one out in your notes. Middle school boys basketball, the recommendations for Jamie Lamar. Sub-varsity, which is JV girls, Alexa Massey. Varsity and sub-varsity assistant, which is a transition plan position for Desiree Hafford. And then you also have a middle school boys assistant recommending John Naranjo.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed?
And I made an error. I should have notified you of another recommendation at the beginning of the meeting as an adjustment, but that just came in today, late this morning. This is to replace Chelsea, who resigned earlier in the agenda here, and the recommendation is for Miguel Barnaby to be a special ed technician one-on-one at Fort Kent Elementary School.
So moved.
Abigail moved, Joe seconded, any discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? Okay, item B. Aroostook County Winter Sports.
So, the MPA, who governs athletics for varsity sports, has been relatively quiet about their recommendations for winter sports. So every county started to have discussions amongst themselves, because in Aroostook, we mostly play Aroostook County schools. And what I'm presenting to you today is probably like a backup plan in the event that the MPA does not come full circle. Now, I did indicate to you earlier today, I was on a meeting with regional superintendents. The MPA was part of that meeting. So there is movement to have the MPA sponsor some recommendations. I will also tell you that they're very, very closely related to what I'm presenting here to you. And this is the work of collaboration between superintendents at Aroostook, athletic directors, and the principals to come up with some kind of guidance that just lets our kids play. What we don't have answers to right now is the sport of wrestling. And that's because the sport of wrestling is considered a high-risk sport, and the medical doctors have also deemed it unsafe to wrestle with a face mask on. So how do you conduct a high-level sport for transmission without a face mask? I'm afraid that the answer to that may be pool testing or vaccination. I'm not afraid that it'll be pool testing, because at least that's something, but I'm worried that it might be the first sport that they mandate vaccinations for, but that's just hearsay, so that's not at this time. But right now, what we have in play is we would allow the locals, which is you all, to decide what our regular season looks like, and for your standpoint, that's what we always do. You know, we have our athletic director create a schedule. We would decide if we want to send our students to a tournament play. So if there's a big tournament in the Cross Center in February, do we want our athletes to go there if they qualify? That'll be a local decision by all of you. Fan attendance, in order to make things equitable across Aroostook County, we would like to have fans home and away attend all games, no limit, but ask that masking is required at those events. For just because our schools are generally universally masked. Indoor sports only for universal masking, and that would be the athletes, the coaches, the referees, the spectators. Outdoor, like skiing, no masking required because it's an outdoor sport. Downhill and Nordic. Vaccination is recommended, not required. Pool testing is recommended, not required. We have some reminders for coaches to keep kids away from each other. And then we have some guidance about school band and singing. For us, it's not a big deal here. We haven't had a pep band in a little while, but we do from time to time like to have somebody sing the Star Spangled Banner. We think we can do that relatively safe with a mask on, so that shouldn't be a big deal. Aroostook County just chose to table this until we have a little bit more, because there are schools that have pep bands, active pep bands, and they'd like to see where this goes. Like I said, the only thing we don't have guidance for right now is wrestling. We and Caribou are the only two schools in Aroostook that have wrestling. So I will be talking with Mr. Doak in Caribou. Mr. Neto, if he's still here, is on the MPA committee for wrestling, so I'll be speaking with him as well about what's coming out of the MPA. Although what I did hear today from two of the MPA reps is that masking is not safe while wrestling, yet it's a very close contact sport. We want these athletes to have their seasons, so we're hoping that you can stand behind this, which may change tomorrow if the MPA comes out with their own guidance, but for now, we're trying to band together as Aroostook County. I think the big win here is that our fans get to go in the gym and watch their kids play this year, which they could not do last year.
Do we have a motion to approve the Aroostook County Winter Sports recommendations?
So moved.
Sarah, second?
Second.
Isabel? Any discussion?
Is this still in draft form, Ben, or?
It's still in draft because not all Aroostook schools have approved it. And I think it's going to stay in draft because the intent is to have it continue to change as our numbers change and as things change. So it's by design a draft.
So we could potentially be here in a few weeks to.
We could, and I'm thinking you're gonna have an MPA guidance that comes out. But like I said, from today's discussions, it's going to look very, very much like this. And I press upon you, I understand the desire to have local control here, but it becomes difficult with, will other communities want to send their kids here if we have different guidance than the other community? Will we want to send our kids somewhere if they have different guidance? So we felt as Aroostook County supers, athletic directors, principals, it would just be easier to have a general sense of what we can all agree to and then adjust accordingly.
Middle school.
Would follow the same.
And it started today, correct?
Yes. So they're going by this right now
Mhm.
because that's all we have right now.
According to this, we would then not be able to have Snack Shack, right? Because it's saying,
What your administrators have decided is that they would open the cafeteria as a place to go have your snacks, your drinks and your snacks, so that no food and drink go in the gymnasium. Most schools are saying we're not gonna open our Snack Shack. We felt, you know what, it's still nice to have that option, and whereas our gym is close to our caf, we can make that happen.
okay.
Any further discussion?
I just don't like the red and the orange. So I mean, you said we're what, 300 and something today, and to get out of that, we gotta be under 100.
I'm with you. I'm watching that thing like a damn hawk. Every day I'm on there looking at that. So,
I think that the only way you're gonna see any movement away from universal masking is if they enact a testing or vaccination protocol in order to play. I think other than that, your MPA will not say no measures at all. They're gonna say, I think what's gonna happen is if you have a certain threshold of vaccination and pool testing, then they're gonna say that team will not have to wear masks. And that might be an incentive to our athletes to say, you guys, you wanna take this off? Join pool testing. So I think there's more to come. We need something, like Sarah said, middle school started today, we needed something to put in action so that they could start.
Has anyone approved this yet, then?
Yeah, Madawaska has approved it. I wanna say Holton has approved it. My meeting is tomorrow, so I can follow up and see what the others have said.
Has anyone not approved it?
I think everyone wants to see the kids play.
very good. Anything else?
Scott Dubois sent me a note saying that most of his wrestlers are vaccinated at this time.
Well, we also started to talk about then pool testing for athletes. I know Madawaska has pretty much 100% buy-in from their athletes. And, you know, when you're looking at team sports, for those that aren't participating, aren't vaccinated, and you're quarantined, you're letting your team down. We tossed around the idea of the importance of our athletes being part of pool testing.
We were thinking as a start of the season speech, if we want to be together for playoffs, just join pool testing and we won't have to worry about this quarantine business. I think promoting it that way.
Just starting to look at the basketball rosters for middle school, there's a large percentage not in pool testing and not vaccinated.
bottom line is we can't tell them to do pool testing and we can't tell them to get vaccinated. That's the bottom line. But if they want to play, there may be certain guidelines they have to follow. So, any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Leroy opposed. Toby, Gary, you abstaining?
Abstain.
Two abstain. One opposed. Article passes.
Let's talk about substitute teachers.
I never thought I'd be so happy to talk about substitute teachers, Ben,
You know
thank
what?
you.
The day that we have an agenda that has nothing to do with COVID, we are all going to leave the meeting and go celebrate. We have a minimum wage adjustment that's going up January 1st. It's going to $12.75 in the state of Maine. Our substitutes, just so you know, work 7-hour days, so doing the math, the old rate, especially the low level, would not work. I have come to you for the past 4 years in a row, every year, to adjust this sucker, and I'm trying to move it up a little more in order to not have to do that again next year. So what I did is I polled my Aroostook County colleagues to find out what they're paying, and the majority of them did say $90 to $95 is their base rate. And so I think we would be prudent to make our base rate 95, because it is hard to get those substitutes, especially now with COVID. I don't know that this will be enough to entice them, but with our incentives, $5 more if you do the sub-skills training after 40 days, another $5 after 80 days, another, so you have a longevity piece in there. You could have folks, making, $15, $16 an hour without benefits to be a substitute teacher, and that's right in line with what a lot of people are paying minimum wage employees now. So we're hopeful that you can agree to that. The majority of our subs are either non-degree or bachelor level. I did double check that with Jackie. So you do have a big cluster at the bottom of level, and at that bachelor level, not a whole lot of retired or certified teachers and not a whole lot of associate's degree level folks, although there are a couple. So this is what I would propose to you for substitute rates.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Toby, second? Ms. Losier? Any discussion?
Total cost, Lucy? Can't be that much.
It's not a big ticket item. Our bigger cost is when someone's out for long term and then replaced for long term, because then they eventually get a teacher rate. But overall, it varied so much in the last year and this year that the numbers have dropped.
Have we encountered a situation where we couldn't find a substitute teacher?
Mr. Doucette, Mr. Coletta?
And how often?
It's happened intermittently where we've had to cover classes ourselves, and it ain't pretty, and we have to use the library sometimes as a place for a class to go, because we don't have the coverage. And Mr. Coletta and the secretaries are the ones that try to find the subs and work all that out every day.
Tomorrow we've had flat out, luckily we've got those PSPs, temporary support personnel, that really help out, and we can put it where we have to, but there's, like Mr. Doucette said, there's times where we have to cover up, cover people, but it's, we're getting by, but we're squeaking by.
It's not a position that we want to be in. We can't work effectively and do that. It doesn't happen often. It's a rare occurrence, but it does.
But like if I had one person call in,
Or tomorrow morning.
or tomorrow morning, we don't have coverage.
Whereas we have less substitutes, because you do have some that just don't want to come in school because of their COVID concerns. We do have less PD, so it kind of offsets one another. As we start to sprinkle in more PD opportunities, this is where the concern's gonna happen. And, you know, we're gonna have to turn down people for PD because we just don't have the subs. So we're hopeful that we can entice, you know, at least a few more folks to come in for these wages.
You're right though, because every time someone asks for PD, we have to look at the calendar and make sure there's not, you know, that there's people available that way, so. And then kind of structure our PD around the dates work.
Mr. Neto?
We're in a similar boat as that there, and I think for Mr. Harrison too, just, we're fortunate that we have a decent list of people that prefer to come to the elementary, not necessarily to the high school. They like working with the younger kids for whatever reason, so, but we're looking at, you know, tomorrow, Wednesday, where you have a team going away, there's a lot of interest, those types of things. You have some days that are much more difficult than others to make sure that all areas of the building are covered. But we're making do. I mean, we're fortunate to have the people that we have on staff that kind of pull together and do what needs to be done in those types of situations.
And we are in the same situation as John. If somebody calls in tonight or tomorrow morning, I don't have anybody to call.
You're it.
Oh, one of us will be in the classroom.
Unless any board members want to come join us?
I don't think we're allowed.
Time after work.
We're not allowed.
They're not allowed.
Anybody have anything else?
Good catch.
John will pay the tab.
Rules.
Very good. All those in favor? None opposed? Article passes. Item D, superintendent evaluation.
This is just a question to all of you. Every December, we do the superintendent's evaluation. Last year, we talked about more of a narrative style in the past, so Leroy, I'll just give you a feedback since you would not been part of this before. In the past, I would take the 10 leadership standards, and I would do a document showing how I addressed all 10 standards throughout the year. It's quite a lengthy document, cumbersome, a lot of information, and last year the board said they feel more of a narrative conversation would be a little more free-flowing, and we talked about that maybe the direction moving forward. I just looking guidance from you on how to prepare for that when we meet next month, so that if I have to bring anything to you, I would like to work on that. If not, if you'd rather just we come and let it be natural, that's fine as well. Do you want me to come with some goals? Do you want, what do you want from me is what I'm asking. Or we can just skip it.
Well, I go with that. Part of my, I'm sorry, Sarah. No, part of my issue with the timing.
Yep.
With it being the end of the year, not the end of the school year.
I know.
I feel like you should be evaluated on that performance for that school year.
It's funky. That's in statute. December is the superintendent evaluation month.
So, here's what it is.
I think maybe rather than you setting goals, that we sit down in December maybe and set goals for the following year for you. I know we do that through the state evaluation, that we sit down and, you know, you have your basic evaluation, but then you also have goals or desires to meet, things that you want to improve on, or things, whatever it may be, but we do it as a group and give it to you for the year. And then, obviously, you're evaluated at the end of the year for that.
Okay.
Plus, I mean, we could obviously have some core value type evaluation.
Because what I could do is I could take your ideas, I could turn them into SMART goals so that they're measurable, and then you'd have something that.
So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think maybe this year is gonna be kind of like a hybrid. I know that term gets thrown out everywhere, but it's gonna be kind of like a hybrid evaluation where you're gonna probably wanna present some data on what experiences you've had this year and how you've addressed that. And at the same time, the board's gonna provide you feedback that may not necessarily be totally in what you provided the board for evidence, but also our experiences as board members. So Maybe there's other districts that use that sort of model.
It's, well, I will tell you that some of the districts have adopted what we had in place around Aroostook County. They like the attachment to the leadership standards. Then you have some districts that just have a checklist, which I find very informal. You know, dress as well, check, or whatever. So I don't quite know. I don't quite know.
I like Gary's idea that we kind of set it up for next year this year.
Yeah.
Because I mean, November's not a good time to talk about what we're gonna do next month. But I think if we go into it next year with like an idea, it's more fair to you.
Yep.
And I think we can have a more honest discussion. I think that's fair, Gary.
Okay.
But for now, maybe like what Keith's saying, like a hybrid.
Do you feel like the evaluation and the goal setting should be set at the same time, or should we be doing a goal setting in January?
I think you need to think carefully about what goals you want to set. So I would not do that at the same time, because we'd be an executive for hours. But maybe next month, I can verbally share with you the experience over the year. You can give me some feedback. We can put the A+ in the paper, or the 4.0, and then move forward towards setting goals for January, which I can in turn turn into SMART goals and present to you in February.
Would you be comfortable in sending us a summary, just a day or two prior?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
That way we can review it before we go into this?
Yep. Can do.
Thank you. Anybody else? See 3 board members here that have never done an evaluation before.
It's gonna be a lot of foul language in my summary. Just kidding. This year has been great.
Okay, do we have a date set? We do have a date set. Our next meeting is Monday, December 13th.
We did move item old business
Oh,
to,
here.
if the board wishes to have that conversation.
Item 2. Planning discussion. So I think with planning, we have talked about our strategic plan, the tri-district strategic plan that Peter presented. I think as far as we're concerned about our SAD 27 plan and what might need to be modified within there, seeing as we're no longer involved in a regional school consolidation. In addition to updating that strategic plan to fit our needs, I think we also need to look at how this board wants the Valley Unified members of this board to represent them at the next Valley Unified board meeting. What do you feel about Toby, Mr. Sibley, and myself going to the next board meeting and continuing our previous push for proportionate voting on that board? I think that was something we kind of forgot about. But I think that's also something we can all agree that as the largest school district in the valley, we probably should pursue membership on that board that's proportionate to what we represent. I'll just go around the table if anybody has something they want to add. Like I said, Toby and Gary, myself, we need some direction. If you guys want to take a vote one way or the other, I think we've taken votes in the past. Gary, do you remember? Did we actually get a vote from the full board to request proportionate voting of the Valley Unified Board?
I don't know if we ever actually voted on it, but the discussion was such that it was unanimous on the feeling that we needed to be represented proportionately.
I think a lot of times we get caught up in discussion and we adjourn our meeting and we didn't really take a formal vote or anything, commit one way or another and have, normally we want to make a motion and have discussion. And if somebody wants to make a motion this evening, we've got a Valley Unified Board meeting coming up, right, in December?
Yes, December 5 or 6.
I don't trust it, though. We've continued it 4 times.
It's coming. Agenda's already made.
So, for those of you that aren't familiar with the background information on how our independent, our ILA, interlocal agreement was set up, we have 3 representatives that are part of the Valley Unified Board. So does SED 33, and so does Madawaska. So, in a proportionate voting system, we would have had probably no less than 4 members on that board, possibly even 5. If we would have pursued an RSU with our neighbors, we would have been required by statute to have proportional voting within that RSU format.
By community.
Was that?
By community.
By community,
Yep.
correct. So, I think, looking back, we probably should be taking a vote on how, or what sort of decision our, or what sort of vote or motion we should be presenting at the next Valley Unified Board meeting. So Gary, would you have a motion you'd like to make?
Well, another thing we had talked about doing, once we realized the school was not gonna come to fruition, was looking at each position within Valley Unified to see if we still needed that.
Right.
Because I know there were some positions we had talked about that were there for the formation of the school that maybe we don't need those anymore, maybe we can streamline them. So I mean, we should look at the personnel
Right.
also.
Right. So, I think we need to start, before we start nailing down specifics, like I said, if somebody wants to make a motion,
I'll bite.
and I don't know what that motion looks like.
Let me see what I can do. I move that, I move to request that the representatives of SED 27 on the Valley Unified Board request proportionate voting from here on out on that board.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Leroy? Further discussion? If any of the newer board members have any questions whatsoever, I realize you're really coming into this late in the game. There's so much background and history to this. For the most part, I believe we're committed to our relationship with our neighbors, just in a different format. And I don't think the interlocal agreement is necessarily reflective of the format that we really intended. So, if anybody else has anything to add? All those in favor? None opposed? Motion passes.
Can I, if it's all right, Mr. Chairman, can I address the strategic plan that you mentioned earlier?
Absolutely.
So I too agree. SED 27 should and does need its own strategic plan. I don't know that it needs to be taking apart what's in Valley Unified. I think that's pretty, most of that is already taken care of, with the exception of priority 1, which we know is not gonna happen, the regional school. I did a little bit of homework with regard to district strategic planning, and I have spoken to all of you about the fact that this district also needs to revisit their vision and mission. So we've had some conversations, some background information, gathering some stuff on that. I do have a strategic plan here that I got from MSAD number 6, which is Bonnie Eagle School District, which I think is a wonderful template for us to draw from. You work on your vision and your mission, and then after working on that, you create a set of guiding beliefs, guiding beliefs that we have here at SAD 27. And from those guiding beliefs, you create some strategic goals based on that. They happen to have 6. I think just using a template like this, we could easily you know, create something that would be a benefit for this district. It would be future focused. It would definitely meet the bill, and I would be willing to, as your superintendent, spearhead this effort, and perhaps that could be one of the goals that we establish. I don't want to plant whatever goals you have for me, but I'm willing to do this regardless if it's a goal for me or not, because I think it is important work. If that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. Now, I think in the past, with our strategic plan, we've gone out to the community, if I'm not mistaken.
You're gonna have to have a group of stakeholders that represent various aspects of the community. So not only your school, but, you know, community members at large, your business people, anybody who's invested in this school district has to be part of that process, parents, so on and so forth.
How about the vision and mission statement? The vision and mission statement.
Yeah, I propose that's all
together,
part of the work, because it's all related.
What are you thinking about as far as the timeframe?
I think in order to do due diligence, you don't want it too long to lose steam for folks, but you don't want to make it so short that you don't do due diligence. I think a 4 to 6 month turnaround is realistic, as to not have, you know, if you have a monthly meeting, 4 to 6 meetings usually can get that done. So that would be my proposal.
And the last one was done when? Peter, do you remember?
The last strategic plan that we did in this school district, Tim Doak was still superintendent.
It expired the year that so expired 2016.
Yeah, it started with Dr. O'Neill.
We had one with Dr. O'Neill, and we had a second one with actually, you're right. Dr. O'Neill was here, and then we had another strategic plan done. It was called the Brown Report, and that was, I think, when Sandy Bernstein was still here. So those are the last two that I remember, prior to the tri-district.
Right.
So it's due for an update.
So how do we break this down into pieces we can eat?
The strategic plan in itself.
The whole thing. I mean, we've got a lot here.
I think Ben has to come back and look at what we have.
Which is nothing.
That was easy.
I would propose that starting in the new year, in January, we form a strategic planning committee and get going at that time, so that we can start the 2022-23 school year with a plan in place.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
To begin this process?
Motion to begin the process of a updated SED 27 strategic plan.
So moved.
Second.
Toby and Gary. Any further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
So we're talking about school stuff. This is awesome. It's exciting.
Yeah. Looks like that covers everything, right, Ben?
I don't want to be out of line here with regards to the conversations about Valley Unified and your role on the board, but just keep it in your mind. I think it would be diligent of this board, and I would even recommend it to the other two, that agreement term is way too long now that you don't have a regional school in your vision. 25 years. I think that needs to be revisited as well, and I think that should be one of your priorities, as well as what you advocated for, the proportional voting. And I don't know what that looks like, you know, revisiting every 5 years, or whatever it is, but I think a 25-year marriage is, unless it's me and my wife, that's not long enough. But this type of marriage is, I don't think, appropriate now that you don't have a regional school.
Well, I think that's something that we need to, I mean, I think there's a lot of things we need to discuss. we gotta talk, I mean, we gotta have that discussion. I think, did we have, there was something in the last agenda, the last time you sent an agenda for Valley Unified about some sort of subcommittee on
Right, so.
stuff?
We have been revisiting the ILA, and I think we just need to have a committee to hash it out rather than try to piecemeal this one meeting at a time for 5 minutes at a time. I think we just need to go through and say, SAD 27 believes this, Madawaska believes, and then hash it out that way.
Yeah, it's frustrating, because if we're in a committee, then it's kind of not on the public stage, and I think to some extent it leaves everyone guessing as to what is being said and what the intentions are, and that's my only reservation around doing a subcommittee.
Yep.
Is because, love me or hate me, I'd rather have everybody know what I'm actually saying as opposed to what they heard I said.
Yep.
And that's okay. I mean, and I'd rather not go into subcommittee on that. That's my only reservation. I saw that on the list and that really bothered me because I want everybody to see, because we don't usually televise or do anything with the subcommittee meetings. They tend to be in private, so.
And I think it's important that we're completely transparent with the full Valley Unified Board.
Yep.
And if we're having committee meetings, I mean, we only have Valley Unified meetings how often? Once every
The intent was.
long time?
Right. Yeah. It was supposed to be every other month, but that's changed a little bit.
Right.
One thing that resonates with me in speaking with all of you last year was, I was very neutral throughout the Valley Unified process because I had to, but I think I have to tell each district what they need to advocate for, and so for me, I'm telling you that this is something that I think you should advocate for. If it's an open session I'll support that. I was just trying to streamline processes, but I'm not gonna be shy to tell you what I think you should be advocating for. I think that's part of my job.
Well, and were you able to get the legislation to Ben?
There is none.
There is none?
No.
It wasn't
The
before.
word was completely off.
This is something that Gary and I had worked on like a year ago as part of the legal team, remember we talked to, yeah. And I'm waiting to see it before he announced it, but because we're here and it's November and openness, there's a piece of legislation that I understand is being sponsored by John Martin to allow members of RSUs to withdraw upon a vote, to basically create a divorce process. The argument basically being that it's the only relationship in the state of Maine that you can't get out of. If you get married, you can get divorced. If you form a corporation, you can dissolve it. But if you enter into RSU, you're stuck. There's the statute doesn't provide
Well,
an exit.
and I think what he had done is, I think the intent was for an educational service center.
Yes, that's it. Not an RSU, Educational Service Center.
Not
Sorry.
an RSU, right.
ESC.
So, I really don't know where that's.
So John Martin has
Where that's
sponsored LR 2385, which is enacted to amend laws regarding education service centers.
Oh, wow.
In my understanding, I saw a rough draft early, but I didn't know it was published yet, and I didn't want to speak out of turn till I saw it. Was basically that it was going to allow educational service center members to ask to withdraw, and allow them to withdraw if they had enough votes in their own district. So if we opted to withdraw, we could withdraw if this passes. So I'm not sure when it's going to be entertained. I don't know anything. I know we still have a legal committee, right? Gary and I? Hasn't been dissolved?
Then, as far as the list of committees, we have that, we had it in the past. We had a legal committee.
You had kind of formed one for the
Ad hoc?
For the purpose of,
because I was a conflict of interest at the time, so you created that ad hoc committee to speak with the attorney.
So I don't necessarily think it's a secret to talk to him, but I think somebody should be a point person. If you want to do it, Keith, you're the chair, I don't care. But somebody should touch base with him and see if there's anything else we need to do.
well, and I think this legislation is kind of like a worst case scenario, right? Ben, you just mentioned how maybe if the other parties involved agree to shorten the term, I think between that and maybe getting closer to proportional voting. I think that really sends a clear message that they really want to stay. We all want to stay in this relationship with one another. We all have mutual benefit. There's no doubt about it. But I'm fine with continuing the committee. And Ben, you'll have to be part of that.
Yep.
Because we're not.
And you're with us this time?
You're part of this process.
Because it's gonna, I mean, it's a facially neutral piece of legislation.
Yep.
And just because it passes doesn't mean we have to.
Right.
We can opt not to withdraw. But I think feeling like we are trapped doesn't make us want to stay.
Understood.
But having an out, well, we might just stay. Maybe it's because I'm hateful, but I don't like being told what to do. And on a personal level, I think that's what I respond to. And I think as a board, if we know we can leave at any time, I think it'll create a much better relationship.
I think it is in our best interest to try to make things work at all costs. And I have no problem as your superintendent and Madawaska and 33 superintendent saying that openly and honest, that we need to listen to everyone's concerns and we need to come to some neutral ground. Because you're right, holding people hostage is never gonna work. So it is in my interest, my best interest, to try to make that work for you all.
So at some point, we're gonna have to decide, because I know when the information was forwarded, when something was said that it was done, somebody suggested a lobbyist. I don't know anything about lobbyists. I'm just a country lawyer. But if it's something we have to decide.
Well, I think it's, I don't know how time sensitive this legislation is.
Me either.
But I'd prefer to see what transpires from our next Valley Unified meeting.
And in the meantime, I can reach out to John Martin and see, where this is and what are the next steps.
What the timeline would be good, would be good, that way we know, and we can, if we need to get together and decide something, I think we should.
Yep.
Is that okay with everybody?
Good with me.
Keith, you wanna vote on that, or are we good?
We can make a motion to make this committee official, first of all. We've never had a legal committee on the record, right? Have you seen any such thing on any other school board?
I think if the chair, if you allow the chairman to work with me, we can, do that together. I don't know that you need another committee to do that.
Okay. Leroy, you want to word a motion on that?
I've been here a while, Keith, I'm not even sure what you're asking
You're
him.
looking-
I wouldn't, it's not fair to him.
Toby's getting all wordy.
I really don't.
Okay, Gary?
I don't know if we really need a motion.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just regular daily business that
Very good,
the chair and the superintendent are
Good
going to
enough.
conduct business for the school.
very good.
Yep.
I'm all new to this.
And I'll talk to, what's his name? The lawyer. Dan,
And Stopford.
and I'll hand the reins, because I've been getting the errant email once in a while.
Very good. All right. Motion to adjourn?
Wait,
Oh, you have something to add?
the next meeting is December 13th. Is that a date that is, for any specific reason?
That's on our calendar, that's on our rotating calendar of meeting dates.
So,
So
no.
I think it's, Leroy, I think it's because we have our Valley Unified meeting the Monday prior.
So, yeah, we rotate, Madawaska 33, Valley Unified when we have one, and then you all, so we have that rotating, list of Mondays where we try to keep things uniform.
You have four board meetings.
So I've got 33 on the 15th, I've got Madawaska the 29th, I've got Valley Unified on the 6th, and then you all on the 13th. That's why it's on the 13th.
Is it okay?
Not for me.
Oh,
And I would
sorry.
well, I mean, I'll be actually out of state, so, and I kind of don't want to miss a meeting with everything the way that it is.
Are you gonna be here the previous week, Leroy?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's up to the board if you wanna do like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't do Fridays by nature. I don't know about you guys.
I don't care.
What's your preference, Ben?
Tuesday or Wednesday.
Are you talking about the week of the 6th?
Yeah, Tuesday the 7th or Wednesday the 8th. If Giselle and Lucy are okay with either of those.
Fine
I'm
by
fine,
me.
as long as it's before the 11th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I got no issue with the 7th.
very good.
Okay, so the 8th, okay?
I'm okay with it.
All right.
Yeah.
Change the 8th.
That's Wednesday.
Wednesday the 8th.
Do we want to, before we adjourn, Keith, maybe not this time, but think about it for next time. I know we're talking about agenda building, but maybe at the end of the meetings, if there's things we need to cover at the next meeting, everyone could kind of come in and make suggestions at the end of the end of our December meeting, make suggestions for January, so we start building our agenda before.
I mean, I think that's a good launch point. I mean, I don't know if me emailing all of you is really necessary. If you guys need something addressed on the agenda, you're free to email myself or Ben, or both of us. And depending on the size of the agenda, what you have on there, and the urgency. I mean, that's pretty much how we worked it, Toby. But I see no reason why we can't just bring up an option at the end of a meeting if you want us to add something.
Yeah, I think sometimes we're just tired at the end of the meeting and we don't want to deal with anything else.
Yeah.
I propose we take off anything COVID related and add 2 other things in place of it. How's that?
Provided we go optional mask.
There we go.
Not a negotiator.
On Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Very good. Motion to adjourn?
So
Second.
Seconded by Sarah. All in favor?